Hi, my name's Alyssa, and my group and I's video is based on our paper, How COVID-19 Mandates and Safety Policies Affected Exercise Habits in College Students. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought many hardships upon society, but in our paper, we primarily focus on the effects it had on physical activity, mainly the physical activity within college students. So we looked at the different times in which there were different changes during the pandemic. So, right when COVID began to start, the rollout of vaccines as well as the post administration of vaccines. So, in this paper, we take into consideration the closure of public places that allows people to work out, the fluctuation of mandate tiers and policies, and how that affected being able to go to gyms and work out and not wear masks, not have vaccinations. We divide those into three subtopics, those being university policies, slash vaccines, physical activity, and the psychological factors that it had on college students. And we went ahead and interviewed 8 participants, and we took the participants' answers, transcribed them, and related them back to our paper. Here's a quick literature review to understand the basis of research we began to analyze, to formulate our questions, and interpret our interviewees' answers once we got them. So, the first article we have here is Physical Activity Dropped Worldwide During COVID-19, Raising Concerns for Health. We use that article as a basis of the overall trend in the United States of physical activity. So from that, we grabbed that the public trend was decreased activity. We did further in research to understand why that was. The second article is the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on U.S. college students' physical activity and mental health. So this tackled the psychological factors side and allowed us to understand what went in people's minds, and specifically college students, which was our main focus group. And the third article is the vaccine refusal, mandatory immunizations, and the risk of vaccine preventable diseases. We have a large section focused on our questions in relation to the vaccine and people's feelings towards it and comfortableness with it. So we derived our information from that article as well. And there's many other articles that we used in our paper, but these are just some of the main 3 important ones.
Now for the instruments that we used within our research. We used an 8 open-ended question survey which talked about some of our subtopics of university policies and vaccines, physical activities, and psychological factors. We wanted to see how exercise habits have been affected due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Interviews were taking place within the application of Zoom. So these were the only 2 things that were used within our research. For our procedures, first we wanted to confirm that each participant met the requirements in order to join our research. These requirements were to have been physically active prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, being a part of the kinesiology department at SS State University, and having gone to the Mashu Center at least once since the return of in-person campus. Once we confirmed these requirements, we asked the participants to join a Zoom meeting. Once they joined the Zoom meeting, we instructed them to turn off their cameras and change their name to a participant number in order to be anonymous within our research. After that, we then asked them the 8 open-ended question survey based on our subtopics. As you can see here, these were the questions relating to our subtopics, in which we would go over briefly within the results portion. For our results, for the first subtopic of university policies and vaccines, the first question that we asked each participant were how comfortable were they with SS State University's practices, such as having to submit the health self questions when using centers like the Mashoof, and submitting their vaccination cards prior to returning back to campus. Our findings were that 6 participants took a positive on these as they felt safe knowing that each of their colleagues were taking a response towards COVID, and two of our participants had a negative response in which they felt forced to be vaccinated prior to returning back to campus, and using the surveys every day to use the Michoud Center felt overused. Within our second question, we asked our participants what practices has the Michoud implemented and how comfortable are you with it? So from this, seven of our participants took a positive response to the Michoud Center's system on cleaning equipment and requiring to wear masks, whereas one participant took a negative to having to wear a mask as it affected their breathing. From this, we see that some of the Michoud Centers implemented cleaning equipment and requiring masks, and this made our participants feel safe, which is why they gave a positive feedback, whereas one felt like it affected them when performing physical activity.
Hello, my name is Aris. I'll be talking about subtopic number 2, which is physical activity. So we interviewed about 8 participants for our interview questions. And our first question was, what did your physical activity / workout tendencies look like before COVID-19? So 7 participants were actually involved with physical activity and had high physical activity prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we had one participant that was not as active as the other participants. So with the participants that are actually active, they actually train at least 3 to 6 times a week in the gym, prioritized weightlifting and cardio. And they also were either doing sports like badminton to kind of get their activity up and tracking their daily steps. And for the other participants that were not as active, I mean, the minimum they will do is basically just get a walk in or kind of get like steps in, but not really much in the physical activity levels of exercising and stuff like that. So our question number 2 was, how was physical activity / working out different throughout each time period? So pre-vaccine, we actually had 6 top participants that had negative changes, meaning that they couldn't basically work out because, gym and stuff were actually closed and they didn't have any workouts that they could do at home with the home gym. And we actually had 2 participants that had no change, so they actually had some home gyms and they were keeping up their routines pre-vaccine by just doing like VR training, home workouts, going on hikes or going on runs. Post-vaccine, we had 8 participants that had an increase in physical activity. So all of our participants were actually getting some workouts in, whether it was a home gym, the Michoud's gym, outside activities, doing indoor climbing gyms and badminton at least like 5 times a week, or even doing group classes at the gym, and also doing strength training and cardio training when they could inside the gym, just being active overall.
For the results portion for our third subtopic of psychological factors, the first question that we asked our participant within this subtopic were how their physical activity practices changed since getting vaccinated. From this, we discovered that one participant had no change due to having an in-home gym, one participant had mixed changes, and 6 of our participants had an increase of physical activity after getting vaccinated as they felt it was safe. For our second question, we asked them how the new Delta variant affected reasoning, any doubts of continuing physical activity. From this, 4 of our participants changed from a public facility into doing in-home gyms and outdoor workouts, whereas 4 of our participants had no change. Within our third question, we asked the follow-up question of examples of their routines that changed throughout the Delta variant being released. Some examples of these changes were, yet again, doing workouts at home, and they were more inclined to work out outside. As for the fourth question, we asked them if any of the breakthrough cases of COVID-19 made them change their attitude towards physical activity. 7 participants had attitudes affected as they were more wary of their surroundings. Some examples of this were making sure they kept the 6 feet apart distance or even more, and were inclined to work out doing more isolated workouts. One of our participants did not change their physical activity habits in any way, but they had to get vaccinated.
The conclusions we deduced with this small qualitative study were that most all individuals' athletic output diminished due to COVID-19. Vaccinations and strict gym protocols helped enhance their comfort in working out in public again, and that the participants were less willing to forgo their movement practices now, even when new COVID-19 health concerns emerge. Limitations include small study group of a very particular demographic. Much of the topics discussed occurred over a year ago, and time can alter events in one's mind, and the general bias individuals hold in qualitative studies. Thank you.